All right, so get ready because today we are diving into a world that's raw, brutal, and completely captivating.
Yeah, this one's a wild ride, that's for sure.
We're talking bare-knuckle boxing, but not just the sport itself. We're going deep into the life of a champion whose story is more gripping than any fight could ever be. Decca Heggie.
And you weren't kidding about a wild ride. Drugs, near-death experiences, you name it. This guy's life has it all.
You got that right. We're talking about the self-proclaimed most trolled man in the UK, Decca Heggie.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got that title for a reason, and we are going to unpack all of it.
But is that the whole story? Is he really just a walking controversy? That's what we're here to figure out. But before we get into all
We
that,
could start at the beginning.
exactly, at the beginning. So, Decca Heggie, bare-knuckle boxing champ, where does it all begin?
Well, his childhood is definitely not what you'd expect. I mean, this is a guy who went from being absolutely terrified to fight back against bullies to becoming a bare-knuckle boxing champ.
Wow, that's quite a transformation.
Yeah, you could say that again. It's almost like he went from 0 to 100, just like that.
So where did he grow up? What was his childhood like?
He grew up in a place called Old Harrowby, which is a housing estate in Carlisle, England. And let me tell you, it wasn't the easiest place to grow up. It was rough around the edges, and it seems like Decca's childhood was marked by a lot of fear, especially when it came to this one bully.
I see. So this bully really had a lasting impact on him.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes you think, right? Like, how much of Decca's drive, his need to prove himself, stems from those early experiences?
It's like he's trying to rewrite his story, conquer those past demons.
Exactly. And then you've got his dad, who went by the nickname Diet Chips.
Diet Chips. Okay, I'm going to need some more information on that one.
Right. It's the most ironic nickname ever. Everything we've read about him screams hard as nails. Like, the kind of guy who you wouldn't want to mess with, you know, a real tough guy persona.
And you can imagine that probably influenced Decca in a big way.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he inherited this tough guy blueprint.
So we've got a rough childhood, a tough guy father figure. It's almost like a recipe for ending up in a world like bare-knuckle boxing. But for those of us who aren't familiar, what exactly is bare-knuckle boxing?
Well, picture boxing, right. But take away the gloves, the rules, all of it. It's just two guys in a ring, bare fists, going at it. Brutal, raw, and often very dangerous.
You said dangerous, and I think it's important to remember that it's not just the fighters who are at risk here. Decca's own family has been threatened because of his involvement in this world.
Absolutely. Decca himself said it's always linked to the underworld. And when you think about it, it makes sense. There's a lot of money involved, shady characters, you know, the whole 9 yards.
There's a whole other level of intensity, a whole other world. And Decca seems to have been drawn to that world, almost like he was trying to conquer his past demons by facing them head on.
Right. It's like he's both running towards something and running away from something at the same time.
A classic case of fight or flight. But in Decca's case, he always chooses to fight.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting because Decca's story doesn't just stop at bare-knuckle boxing. This guy, he dabbled in acting, podcasting. It's like he was searching for something more.
Trying to find his place in the world, maybe?
Maybe. Or maybe he was trying to outrun the bare-knuckle brawler label.
Either way, you can't deny that this guy's life was anything but ordinary.
Oh, absolutely not. He was a walking contradiction, full of complexities and contradictions. And that's what makes his story so fascinating.
So we've got this guy, right? This bare-knuckle brawler trying to make a name for himself outside the ring. Trying his hand at acting, even starting a podcast. It's like he's trying to outrun his past, but the past keeps catching up with him.
It's like he's got this energy inside him, this need to prove himself, but he's not sure where to direct it.
And that's where things get really interesting, because even when he's trying to do something different, it seems like trouble just seems to find him. Like that incident with the road workers while he was recording his podcast.
Oh, yeah, that was a whole thing. I mean, talk about a guy who can't seem to escape conflict, even when he's trying to do something as simple as recording a podcast.
It's like wherever Decca Heggie goes, drama follows. But even with the acting and the podcasting, the thing that really seemed to blow up, the thing that really made him infamous, was the online world. It's like he stepped into a whole new fighting ring, and this time the stakes were even higher.
Absolutely. And this is where that most trolled man in the UK label really takes hold. And to understand it, you have to wrap your head around the sheer scale of the online hate he was receiving. This wasn't just a few mean comments here and there. We're talking organized campaigns to discredit him, to ruin his reputation.
Wow, organized campaigns. That's intense.
Mhm.
But what was it about him that attracted that level of hatred?
Well, it's ironic, but it seems like his openness, his willingness to talk about his past struggles, that's what made him such a target.
Really, you'd think that would make people more sympathetic.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it's almost like the more vulnerable he was, the more ammunition he gave to the trolls, and the accusations were relentless. Rumors about his personal life, claims that he was faking his attempts at reform, people trying to sabotage his acting and podcasting gigs. It was constant.
It's like they wanted to see him fail.
It often seems that way. And knowing Decca, I bet he didn't back down from those online battles.
Oh, I doubt it. This is a guy who's made a career out of fighting.
Exactly. His instinct was always to fight back, to meet aggression with aggression. But in the online world, that often backfires.
Because it just fuels the fire.
Exactly. Every angry response, every attempt to defend himself, it just gave them more to work with. It's like he was trapped in a digital echo chamber of hate.
And this brings us back to that whole nature versus nurture debate. Was this need to fight, this inability to back down, is that a product of his rough upbringing? Or was it just part of who he is?
It's a question that's probably crossed Decca's own mind a few times, I'm sure, because even when he's trying to create a different path for himself, even when he's trying to be the better man, he ends up right back in the ring, battling it out with these faceless antagonists.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
And that's what makes Decca's story so tragic in a way. He's battling his own demons, yeah, but he's also battling a force that's bigger than him, a force that's designed to keep him trapped in that cycle of conflict. And it makes you wonder, can he ever truly break free? Or is he destined to forever be the most trolled man in the UK?
It's a question that I don't think has an easy answer, but it's definitely a question worth exploring. It's like he's fighting a losing battle, but he keeps getting back up.
He does. He keeps going. And you know what? That's something you got to respect about Decca Heggie, that resilience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can say what you want about the guy, but he's a fighter.
That's for sure.
He's got this undeniable spirit, And it makes you wonder, what is it that keeps him going?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is it that need for redemption? Is it that desire to prove everyone wrong?
Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just who he is.
Maybe. But whenever it is, it makes for a captivating story.
Absolutely. Decca Heggie is a walking contradiction, a guy who's both deeply flawed and strangely compelling.
He is. And, his story, it's a reminder that things aren't always black and white.
Right, there's a lot of gray area.
Exactly. And sometimes the toughest battles are fought within.
And those battles, they're not always pretty.
Nope. They're messy, they're complicated, and they rarely have easy answers.
But they make us human.
They do, and they make us question everything.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the enigma that is Decca Heggie. The bare-knuckle brawler, the ex-con, the internet punching bag, a man who reminds us that sometimes the toughest opponent is ourselves.
The Deep Dive is a production of Your Company. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.